Hello everyone, we are going to talk about polynomials here, and this is going to be a little bit more extensive as a review because there are a few things that I really want to emphasize here. And the first thing is really I want to show you how to analyze and make sure you justify your reasoning and put that all down on paper. So it's a preparation also for those three responses. And just like always, right, I'm writing as I'm talking, as I'm thinking and doing computation in my head. So I'm more likely to open to make mistakes. So if you see me make any mistake that I don't catch myself making, please do email me and say, hey, Miss Williams, you made a mistake here. I would not be upset at all. On the contrary, I would be very grateful so I can redo the video and fix it. So please don't hesitate. Okay, so let's go. Characteristic of polynomial functions. The first thing we want to know, the domain of the polynomials are always going to be all real numbers. And they're well-behaved functions, and this is why we like to use them a lot to model some real-life situations sometimes. So we use polynomials a lot for modeling. And then they're continuous and smooth, no corner, no cusp. That's what we mean by smooth. So as opposed to an absolute value, right, which is continuous but has a corner, a polynomial would be nice and smooth. The degree of the polynomial will give you the number of zeros. Now, those can be real, complex, distinct, or with multiplicities, right? For example, y equals x cubed has only one zero, but the x cubed tells you should have three of them. That just means that you have x equals 0, but you have a multiplicity of it, 3, right? You have it 3 times. The number of extrema is at most one less than the degree, so that's kind of important too. So for example, if you would have a degree, like here, we have a degree 5, that's a quintic, so we know we will have at the most 4 extrema. Extremas are the minimums and the maximums, right? Alright, so let's go now. So we are going to analyze the polynomial function. Consider g of x, and here it is, it's a quintic. Notice how we have a coefficient here that is not given to us, so we are going to have to find that probably. Determine the end behavior of the graph of g of x and justify your reasoning. So we're going to start practicing how to do that, right, for 3 responses. So to find the end behaviors, and what do we mean by end behaviors really? End behaviors are your horizontal asymptotes. They are the horizontal line that tell you as x approaches negative infinity, and I'm going to say g of x here because this function is called g of x. G of x approaches what? And as x approaches positive infinity, so that means when I go to the right side of the graph, where does my g of x go? What does it approach, right? So the right-hand side of the graph is given to you by the leading coefficient. So the leading coefficient is positive. Therefore, the right side of the graph of g of x goes to, what am I saying? The leading coefficient is not positive. Oh, I caught it. It's negative. The leading coefficient is negative. It's a negative 2, so the right side of the graph doesn't go up. Because your leading coefficient is negative, the right side of the graph goes down. So if it's going down on the right, what we know, as x approaches positive infinity, which is the right side, then g of x goes down to negative infinity. So that's my first end behavior. And then the second end behavior is given to you then by the degree. So the degree is odd, right? It's a quintic, so it's an odd number. Therefore, the left side goes opposite direction than the right. And so that means since this one went down to negative infinity, the left side, as we go toward negative infinity, goes up to positive infinity. So those are your end behaviors. And that's your justification right there. I explained why, right? So you cannot just state what the end behaviors are. You actually have to explain how do you know that. Is x equals 1 a root of g of x? If yes, use it to find the value of a. And so we're going to check that. So how do we know if x equals 1 is a root? I'm going to do a synthetic division. So x equals 1, so that means I'm going to put the 1 in my box, and then I need my coefficients. So negative 2, make sure you have all your terms, right? Quintic, quartic, cubic, quadratic, linear, constant. So we're good to go. So we have a negative 2, we have a positive 5, negative 14, a, negative 20, and 5. Actually, I have a typo here. That should be if x equals 1 is a root, then use it to find the value of 1. I mean, of a. Because if it's not a root, then we're stuck. So I'm going to fix that on your paper, guys. But just imagine that should say if x equals 1 is a root of g of x, use it to find the value of a. That's how it should be written here. So we're going to bring negative 2 down. The first one comes down, and then we multiply, right? Add in that direction, and then multiply in this direction. So that will be negative 11. Negative 11 times 1 is negative 11. And that we would add here, but now I'm kind of stuck, right, because I have that a there. So then I'm going to go backwards, because if x equals 1 is a root, my remainder here has to be 0, right? And if the remainder is 0, there is only one way I can get 5 plus something equals 0, if that is negative 5, right? And so to get that number, negative 5 here, what I had to do, see how we get that number, we take that and we multiply, right? So, and that will give you the next number. So if you take that and you divide, you will get this one, right? So we're going to take negative 5 divided by 1 will be negative 5. And so negative 20 plus what will give me negative 5, and that will be 15, right? And then that divided by 1 will be giving me this number right here. And now here, when I add those two, when I add a plus a negative 11, I need to get 15. So a plus negative 11 has to be equal to positive 15. And so we're going to add 11 to both sides, and therefore a is equal to 26. Okay, we want to find the multiplicity of the root x equals 1. And to find the multiplicity, so I already have it once, right? I am told x equals 1 is a root, so I know it's there once already. So now if I want to find the multiplicity, I'm just going to keep dividing by 1 to see what's happening. So I already divided by 1 once here, right? And that gave me all of those numbers. So now I'm going to use those. So I'm going to put my 1 back in my box. But instead of using those coefficients up here, I'm going to use those now. So I'm going to have negative 2, 3, negative 11, 15, and negative 5. Multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, and multiply, and boom. So x equals 1, when I divide, gives me a remainder of 0 twice. So it has a multiplicity of 2 already. So we're going to keep checking until we don't get a remainder of 0 anymore, right? So now I'm going to do it with this one. So let's change color so you see what I'm doing. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to do synthetic division again. So negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. That will be negative 1. That will be negative 1. That will be negative 11. That will be negative 11. And then that will give me a negative 6, which is definitely not a 0. So multiplicity of 2. So the answer here, what is the multiplicity of the root? X equals 1. X equals 1 multiplicity of 2. Because we got a remainder of 0 twice. Using all of the tools in your toolbox about polynomials, determine how many times the graph of g of x should touch or cross the x-axis. Show the complete analysis with written justification that leads to your answer. So we know the graph is going to touch or cross. What is the difference? Touch means we're going to be tangent to the x-axis. That's when you have an even multiplicity. And cross is when you have an odd multiplicity, right? So we already know 1 is going to be there twice. So x equals 1, multiplicity of 2 is tangent to the x-axis. And so now I need to keep working. So what I had after my 1 here that still gave me a 0 was this. This is what I had left over, right? So I'm going to use that. I don't want to use this line because my remainder was not 0. So I had negative 2, that's no x squared, x cubed. So negative 2x cubed plus 1x squared minus 10x plus 5. And I'm wondering, 10x, I forgot my x here. I'm wondering if we could do grouping here. So let's see if grouping would work. So if this is equal to 0, I want to find what are my x's. So I'm going to factor out a negative 2, no, not a negative 2, a negative x squared. So I'm going to take out negative x squared. What's left over will be x minus 1, right? If you divide this by negative x squared, you'll have, no, Miss Williams, pay attention. See what I mean? See what I mean? It's hard sometimes to do math when you're talking and not thinking clearly. All right, so divide that by negative x squared definitely gives me a 2x, right? So now I'm going to look at these two terms and I'm saying, okay, what can I take out here? And it looks like I could factor out a negative 5 and that would give me 2x minus 1. And now you see how we have in this term and in this term we both have a factor of 2x minus 1. And so what's left over here will be negative x squared minus 5. And it sure looks like I could factor out a negative, right? So that would give me 2x minus 1. Factor out that negative from here and you will left with x squared plus 5. Now what are those zeros left? So this one, that's your zero product property, right? You have two things, you multiply and you get 0, then one of them has to be at least 0. So 2x equals 1, x equals 1/2. And then this one will give you x squared is equal to negative 5, take a square root, and that will be x is equal to plus or minus I square root of 5, which is not real, so we're not going to worry about it, right? Because a non-real number is not going to touch or cross our x-axis, right? Those are not real zeros, so they are not going to intersect our x-axis. So the only other place where I'm going to touch the x-axis is at x equals 1. And so to finish here, we're going to have x equals 1, multiplicity of 2 is tangent to the x-axis, so it touches it but doesn't cross it. And then x equals 1/2 will intersect because it doesn't have a multiplicity, right? The x-axis. All right. This is a video, right? So remember, you can pause me, rewind, re-listen if you need to. Or you can even fast forward if you feel like, oh, I got that, Miss Williams, I don't need to listen to that. All right. Picture to the right is the graph of a polynomial function h of x that has no imaginary root. So we're told that all the roots that are there, we see them. Based on the number of relative extrema, what type of function is h of x? So we have 1, 2, 3 extrema, right? 1, 2, 3 of them. So remember, because we see them all, there is no magic trick here. We see everything that's going on a real number plane. And so I have 3 extrema, therefore, remember what we said here? The number of extrema is at most 1 less than the degree. So because I have 3 extrema, my degree is 1 more than 3. because there are 3 extrema. So the degree is 1 more than 3, therefore h of x is a quartic. And now I want to check that. I have 1 0 here, 1 0 here, that's 2, and it looks like I have 1 more here, that's 3, but I just said it was a quartic. This one is tangent to the x-axis, it does not cross, therefore that's a multiplicity of 2, and so it will be 2, 3, 4. So we're good to go, right? We have a quartic. State the interval where h of x is concave up and where it is concave down. So we're going to have to give the interval where the function is concave up and concave down. So let's say concave up first. And then we're going to say concave down, if anywhere. Intervals, right? So when I'm starting from the most left point on my curve, when I'm going up, this is concave down, right? Concave down. And it looks like, it's kind of hard to say, but it looks like the graph is going to start switching from concave down to concave up, about at -1, right? And then again, so that will be concave up, all the way to about here, and then it's going to be concave down again, right? So we're going to say from -1 to 2, the graph is concave up. So from -1 to 2, and I'm not going to include those points because to show concavity I need an interval, right? At one specific point the graph is not concave up or concave down, is it really? You need an interval. Where is it concave down then? It being h of x, so coming down from -infinity, right, from that side, from -infinity all the way to -1, so from -infinity to -1, or, remember that symbol, from 2 to positive infinity. State the end behavior of h of x and determine what insight it gives you about the function. So the behaviors are as x approaches -infinity, meaning as I'm moving toward the left, my graph is going down. So my graph is h, so h of x goes to -infinity. As x goes to positive infinity, h of x goes to -infinity, right? Also going down. And that matches our quartic degree, right? Because the degree quartic is 4, so that's an even number. And because we have an even number, the end behaviors have to behave the same. So that matches that degree there. So here are the end behavior, and what does it tell us about the function now? Not about the graph, but the function. So if your graph on the right goes down to -infinity, that tells me, this one here tells me that the leading coefficient is negative. Let's make sure I do that right this time, huh? And what does that tell me? They're the same. See how they behave the same? And because they behave the same, this tells me that the degree of h of x is even, which it is because it's a quartic, right? So that's what that tells me. And you have to be careful, right? When you're asked to tell something about the function, talk about the function, not the graph. When you're asked to say something about the graph, talk about the graph, not the function. Okay? Analysis from a table. So here we have a polynomial. We don't know much about the polynomial, but we're given a few values of f of x. And we are told that the function has two distinct zero, x equals a and x equals b, such that a is less than 0. So we have one root that's negative and b is greater than 0. So we have another root that's positive. So we have two distinct zero, meaning two different ones, right? And we are told this is a cubic. So we already know that one of those two has to have a multiplicity of 2, because otherwise we wouldn't have a cubic, right? Additionally, one of the zero has a multiplicity of 2. Well, there we go. It's even written down. So let's see what we need. Between what two x values in the table does the 0 x equals a lie? What is its multiplicity, and then justify, right? So again, remember, we're preparing for free responses. We're preparing you more than just for free responses. We're preparing you for the future when you're going to be an engineer or a doctor or somewhere where in a job where you're going to have to maybe come up with a conclusion of some things that you had to solve or do, and then explain to others why you came up with that conclusion, right? So that's what we're preparing you for. So between which x2 values is x equals a? X equals a, right? So we're told that x equals a is less than 0. So we're looking at anything on the left of 0, right? We want something that's negative. Well, look at your y values. Positive but less, right? So my function is decreasing between those two. And then here at 0, my function is now negative. So somewhere between -2 and 0, we had to cross the x-axis. Would you agree? And this is called the intermediate value theorem. So we're going to say by the intermediate value theorem, A lies on the interval -2, 0. Not 0, not -2, right? Because we know -2 is 16 and 0 is -4. But somewhere between those two, we have to cross the x-axis. Now, why? What does the intermediate value theorem? By the way, this one can be written in short IVT, and we're going to use that quite a bit. But the IVT says if your function is continuous, well, this is a polynomial, therefore it is continuous. So first condition met, right? If the function is continuous and we're having a y value of 16 here and a y value of -4, and because 0, which is my x-axis, y value, right, is between those two values, then the function between -2 and 0 has to have an x-intercept there somewhere. So A lies between -2 and 0. So we can write it like that, or we can write it as -2 is less than A, which is going to be less than 0. Either way. By the IVT, we know that for a fact. What is the multiplicity? Well, my x-intercept is going to be here somewhere, and it goes from a positive value to a negative value. So there is no tangent there, right? Because otherwise we would go positive, positive, or negative, negative. So we know that the graph intersects the x-axis, so the multiplicity is 1. So the multiplicity of x equals a is 1. And we just justified it, right? Because I explained it to you. Between what two x value in the table does the x equals b lie? What is its multiplicity, and justify? So now we know that b has to be greater than 0, right? So we're going to look at all the values greater than 0, and we're going to look at their x values, right? Now we know this is a polynomial, and we know it's well behaved, and so we go from a negative to a lesser negative, right? So we go from -4 to -2, back down to -4, and then down to -20, right? So because my graph we know is a cubic, it already has a 0 right there, and we know one of them has a multiplicity of 2, so it's really only going to touch or cross the x-axis twice. So we already defined or determined that one place will be here between -2 and 0. The other place is going to be somewhere here, because we go from -4 to -2. So it's increasing, right? And then it's decreasing again. So it's going to be between 1 and 3, or between 0 and 1. So here it's kind of going to be tricky, right? We're going to go negative. Let's do a little graph of that. So at 0, we're down at -4. At 1, we're at -2. And at 3, we're back down at -4. 4, right? So the function is increasing, and then somehow it's decreasing. So I need to have somewhere an x-intercept right there, between 1 and 3. So between those two, right there. So we're going to say x equals b lies on the interval 1, 3, open interval, right, because it's not 1 and it's not 3, because we know that from the table. So it lies on 1 and 3 and has a multiplicity of 2 because the y values do not change sign. So we're not crossing the x-axis. We know that because of that. Okay? That's an analysis, right, that we're doing from a table. Determine the end behavior of f of x and give a reason to your answer. So we already know f of x is a cubic. We are told that, right? It's a cubic. So if it is a cubic, we know both end behaviors are going to be at odd with each other, right? Cubic is an odd number. So 1 is going to go to infinity, 1 to negative infinity. So I'm looking at my table and see if I go from negative 4 to 16 and then to 50, that's going to be increasing, right? So the left-hand side looks like it's going up, and the right-hand side goes from negative 4 to negative 20, so that's decreasing, so the right-hand side is going down. And so those are the end behaviors. And give a reason to your answer. Well, we know that they have to be, so the end behaviors, cubic is an odd degree, an odd degree. Therefore, end behaviors go opposite directions. So that's one thing I know because it's a cubic. And then I'm looking as I'm moving to the left. So as x goes toward, so sorry, I forgot my x. As x goes toward negative infinity, right? As I'm moving toward the left, the y values are increasing. So my f of x is increasing. And as x goes toward positive infinity, so on that side, my y value, so your f of x, is decreasing. And that's how I justify, right? That's how I know that those are my end behaviors. All right, we have one more. It's a short one. It only has 3. Consider the following polynomial function. So f of x is a cubic, and we're going to use that to answer. If x plus 3 is a factor of f of x, rewrite f of x in factored form. Now that's going to be a trick that's going to be helpful. So if I know that this is a factor, can I rewrite that in factored form? Well, if it is a factor, then x equals negative 3 has to be a 0, right? So I'm going to use that fact and I'm going to do a synthetic division with that. So I have cubic, quadratic, linear, constant. I'm good to go. So I have negative 2, negative 1, 13, and negative 6. Set it up, bring the first one down, and multiply. So negative and negative, that's positive. 6, add, that would be 5. That would be negative 15. Add would be negative 2. Multiply, add 0. So we are good there. And now we have a quadratic here, right? So that's the same thing as negative 2x squared plus 5x minus 2. Set that equal to 0. See if you can factor that. So we already had one of the factors, right? And so now let's see if we can factor this. So it's going to be, the first thing I want to do is take out a negative of that. I don't want that negative there. So I'm going to take out that negative, which becomes 2x squared minus 5x plus 2, right? And so now, that negative in the front there. And then I say, okay, what can I multiply to give me 2x squared? Well, it's just going to be 2x and x, right? That's the only way I can multiply two things to give me a 2x squared. And here I want to multiply to give me a 2, so now I have to think for a minute, because it could be 2 times 1 or 1 times 2, but those are my only options, right? In the middle there I want a negative 5, so 2 times 2 will be 4x and 1, right? So I actually want minus 2 here and a minus 1 there. So let's go over that gymnastic again to check. If I would multiply those two, that will give me negative 4x, right? And then those two will give me negative 1x, and add them will give me negative 5x. So we're good to go. Now, this here is the factored form of that quadratic, but we already had a factor given to us. So I need to put this there too. And now all of that together is going to be f of x in factored form. State the zeros of the graph and their multiplicities. Well, the zeros are just going to be x is equal to 1/2, 2, and negative 3, right? And it's a cubic, and we have 3 of them. There is no multiplicity, right? If you really want to give a multiplicity, you would just say 1. Find the values of x which make f of x greater than or equal to 0. So that means I want to figure out where is my graph above the x-axis. Again, that's going to be a gymnastic that we're going to do quite a bit, and so we need to be familiar with that. So I want to find, and then we need to show with a number line analysis how we get to our solution. So I'm going to say, okay, if I have a x-axis here and the y-axis somewhere, right? I have a 0 at 1/2, so if I put a 1 here, then I have a 0 at 1/2, I have a 0 at 2, and I have one, make that a little longer, at negative 3, right? Those are your zeros. Okay, so you want to figure out where is your graph going to be above the x-axis, right? F of x greater than or equal to 0. Well, we know it's equal to 0 at those 3 spots. Oops, that should be 1/2 right there. Now, this is a cubic. Oops, you don't see it. This is a cubic. My leading coefficient is negative, therefore my right-hand side has to come down. It's a cubic, therefore the left behaves opposite. And none of those have a multiplicity that's even, so I'm going to intersect all those x-axes. So my graph is going to come down. It's going to come back up through here, and going to come back down here. So where is the graph going to be positive? Well, from negative 3 to 1/2, the graph is negative. F of x is less than 0, right? From 1/2 to 2, the graph is going to be greater than 0, or equal to, right? And then it's going to be less than again on that side. On that side, the graph is going to be greater than or equal to 0. So now let's put all of that together, and let's say for what values of x is f of x greater than or equal to 0. So it will be from negative infinity all the way to negative 3. And it says or equal to 0, so we're going to include the negative 3. Infinity always has a parenthesis. Or the union symbol, right? From 1/2 to 2. Including both of those because it says or 0. And those are the intervals where your graph will be positive. Alright, that was long enough. I hope that this helped you review a lot on polynomial, and have fun with your assignment, as always.